What if the thing that makes you smart is also the thing that's slowly burning you out? Because for a lot of people, that's not a theory, that's every single night. Here's something nobody talks about enough. Some of the most intelligent, emotionally aware people you'll ever meet are also some of the most exhausted. Not from doing too much, from thinking too much. They replay conversations that ended hours ago. They build out scenarios that may never happen. They're lying awake at 2 a.m., not because something went wrong, but because their brain simply will not stop asking, what if? And here's the psychological paradox buried inside all of that. The very cognitive habit that makes someone thoughtful, careful, and deeply empathetic is the exact same habit that quietly drains them. So let's get into it. What's actually happening inside the brain of someone who overthinks, and what it really says about who they are. What researchers actually call this, psychologists, have a specific term for this pattern: maladaptive rumination. It's the tendency for the mind to circle back to the same thought loops over and over, especially around uncertainty, past events, or social situations. Studies have found something important here. People who ruminate aren't doing it because they're weak. In many cases, they're doing it because their brain is exceptionally good at pattern recognition. It's always scanning, always processing, always searching for meaning. The problem isn't the intelligence, it's that the system never gets a signal to stop. Where it starts. Here's what most people don't realize. This pattern rarely begins in adulthood. For a large number of overthinkers, it starts in childhood, often in environments where outcomes felt unpredictable, where moods shifted without warning, where one wrong move had consequences that felt way too big. So the young brain does something logical. It starts thinking ahead, anticipate everything. If you can see it coming, maybe you can protect yourself. Seen through that lens, overthinking isn't a flaw at all. It's an adaptation, a very smart nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. Not all overthinking is the same. Psychologists break this into two distinct types. The first is reflective rumination, turning inward to understand yourself and process emotions. When balanced, this is genuinely a strength. It's tied to higher emotional intelligence and deeper self-awareness. The second is brooding rumination, a more passive, more distressing pattern of dwelling on problems without ever moving toward resolution. This is where overthinking starts costing people sleep, decisions, confidence, and the tricky part, most overthinkers slide between both, sometimes in the same hour. A moment of healthy reflection can drift into a spiral almost invisibly. Cognitive psychologists call this the illusion of mental progress. The mind feels like it's solving something, but it's actually just looping. Why the brain keeps going. This is where dopamine enters the picture. Your brain releases small amounts of dopamine during problem solving, even imagined problem solving. So when an overthinker runs through a scenario, analyzing every angle, the brain is being partially rewarded just for the activity itself, not for finding an answer, just for thinking. That's why telling someone to just stop thinking about it is neurologically naive. The brain has a chemical reason to keep going. What this pattern actually reveals. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting. Research has found that people who report higher levels of rumination also score significantly higher on measures of cognitive empathy, the ability to understand and anticipate how others think and feel. They're more sensitive to social nuance, more aware of how words land, more attuned to the unspoken emotional texture of a room. The same engine that makes overthinking so exhausting is also what makes these people remarkably perceptive. But perception without resolution is draining. They notice everything, they feel the full weight of every possibility, and yet, the more they think, the harder clarity becomes. The quiet truth, the mind cannot think its way out of every problem. Some things have to be felt, decided, or simply let go, not solved. Therapists who work with chronic overthinkers focus not on stopping the thoughts, but on changing the relationship to them. One approach teaches something called cognitive diffusion, observing a thought without being pulled into it. The shift is subtle but powerful. Instead of, this situation is dangerous and I need to figure it out, the reframe becomes, my brain is generating a concern right now. One pulls you under, the other gives you just enough distance to breathe. Overthinking is not a personality defect, it is not weakness. At its core, it's a highly active mind that learned to stay alert in a world that once felt uncertain. The goal was never to stop the thinking entirely. The goal is to teach that mind, slowly, with patience, that it is finally safe enough to rest. We all carry patterns shaped by experiences we didn't choose. Understanding them doesn't erase them, but it does change how much power they have over us, and sometimes that understanding is exactly where it begins.